And now, to address the legal concerns of our community, AM 1310 The Light presents Legally Speaking.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, you're live.
Good morning, everyone. This is Nathaniel Lee, and I'm happy to be coming to you again live on YouTube, Facebook, and also the internet. We have today also our superstar panel, attorney Milton, who famously represented Rodney King, and attorney Vanita Banks. Today, though, I want you to write this number down. It's very important. We've had some poor reception on our call, so we're going to have a call-in number through a Zoom website. So write this number down, 888-788-0099. That's 888-788-0099. Now,
Also give the meeting ID, please.
Now, the meeting ID, once you call into the number, it will say enter a meeting ID, and the number you need to enter is 862-4489-7309. That's 862-4489-7309 is the meeting ID. Under this scenario, we should have clear receptions to your call. We've had some difficulty hearing you, but if you call through this number, it should give us clarity in terms of what you're saying. But today we have so many important topics that are prevalent. But Milton, I'd like to start with the 800-pound gorilla, that is the Buffalo mass murder. I was disturbed by every news account that keep saying how he planned this. But Dalen Roof, the white supremacist who shot people in Mother Emanuel in Charleston, South Carolina back in 2015, he's given a death penalty, but he's still alive. So he got life sentences, and this white supremacist side, he targeted an area that he knew had the highest concentration of Blacks, and then decided to try to kill everybody in sight. What, if anything, can be done to, in your mind, Milton, to prevent these type of tragedies?
To prevent them?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Nate, white supremacy and racism and replacement theory and whatever other modern terms you want to give, pure racism has to be attacked, and it has to end. And I guess talking doesn't do everything, but I insist on my life in putting racism on the table whenever I see it. I try to, no matter if it's an old friend or new person or event or whatever. We need to put it out there and deal with it. So in the schools, we need to talk about it early, about diversion, and let young people know that we are different, but we are also alike. And don't let people drive that difference in between us. Racism has been a concern of mine all of my life, but I don't seem to have gotten very far in doing anything about it. You know, we all have been working at it, I think. Going back to the Rodney King case, I thought we had the Loch Ness Monster captured, but it's still out there. It's still out there. I just read in today's front page, an LA police officer has been suspended for off duty because he's a SWAT member, and he told his crew happy hunting, and two of his officers killed a suspect. It's a disregard for human life, and we just got to keep fighting, man. That's what I see. We can't legislate compassion and love for our fellow man, but we can practice it, and that's what we have to do.
There was a state, I think it was Ohio. Was it Ohio where the parents got charged with or was that Pennsylvania recently in the last 9 months? The young man went on a rampage at a high school and they've charged the parents. Was that in Ohio?
It was a Midwest state. I don't know. This stuff is happening every week. I can't keep up, but I don't know which state it was. But supposedly the father and the parents gave the young man a weapon for a gift. Is that the one you're talking about?
Well, wait a second. The parents got charged, but I can't remember what state that was in. Yeah, the parents both. Was that Michigan? Maybe it was Michigan.
I want to say Michigan, but I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think it was Michigan. And the district attorney or the prosecutor then charged the parents and denied bond to the young man. And this most recent mass murder in Buffalo, New York, I watched carefully the prosecutor interview, and he was saying all the evidence they were looking at, but he never mentioned the possibility of charging the parents, because how can this 18-year-old acquire all this money to buy the weapons and have access to all of these horrific items without being funded by the parents? And if so, should they have liability?
Well, maybe the kid worked and saved his money. I was reading somewhere this week that I don't know if it's in New York or pretty much across the nation. You know, if you're 16, you can own a long rifle, you can own a firearm. Don't even have to be 18, I think, in some places. This young man was determined to go hunting human beings, African-American human beings, and he did such. I don't know if the parents shared in his philosophy of replacement of minorities, because they feel that minorities are taking over their righteous, God-given position in the world, especially here in the US. But you have to have a nexus other than just birthing of someone to be responsible for them. You have to have some type of act, conspiracy to get a conspiracy. So I don't know what's there for that, but I do know this was this was a horrific killing. I saw that video, and I did not know that these weapons really were that effective. You know more about guns than I do, I believe, but that pop, 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 when you put it on that button and you get those 3 shots, this kid got out of the car, Nate, and within the first 5 to 6 seconds, he had killed 3 or 4 people. Pop, 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 pop. And then walking across the parking lot, shot in the store and killed more people. When he got in, people was lying down because they had been hit from outside. And he was as calm as a cucumber, as they say. And then when he walked up on this man that was on the floor and said, no, and he looked at him, he said, oh, sorry, and kept walking, pop, 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 and kept killing. And I didn't know how effective, and it was like watching one of the video games I've seen the kids play, the suddenness of the slaying of a human life and the taking of a human life. It was like devoid of humanity. And I just, it hit me like that. You know, this is, something's got to be done about weapons and about this hate philosophy that we seem to just take in stride today.
Well, by the way, that shooting was at Oxford High School, a suburb of Detroit in Oxford Township, Michigan.
Okay.
4 students were killed and 7 people were injured. They were shot by 15-year-old Ethan Crumley. Ethan Crumley's parents were both charged with manslaughter type offenses and involuntary manslaughter. And they apparently had allowed him to secure the gun for the shooting. And their arrest was captured on TV. But the problem I'm having with these mass shootings is that this white supremacist had on bulletproof vests and things like that. And so when they shot him, apparently he wasn't injured. And so that means that he wanted to live. If you take Dylan Roof that killed all those people, Mother Emanuel, he was given the death penalty multiple times, but he's still alive.
And he may not get death. Go ahead.
Yeah, 7 years have gone by, and that was on June the 17th of 2015. We're into the 7th year, come June 15th, and he's still alive. He's been supported by the federal government, and we had. I've not been a cheerleader for death penalty during my lifetime because I saw the harmful effect and how minorities were targeted. Now we see the reverse of it when we know that we have mass killers, and for whatever reason, it's just taken an extraordinary length of time for justice to be administered, and I'm concerned about that.
Well, I'm not a proponent of the death penalty. I'm anti-death penalty because I think it has swept across this country as being racist and not equally distributed amongst the people who are convicted, and oftentimes innocent people are convicted and given death. Saying that, I'm not opposed though for a person who committed a heinous crime being punished for that crime. But I think life in prison personally is sufficient. Death penalty is not a deterrent, since we want to put the discussion on the table. However, you can expect in most cases that I've seen, and I've handled one in particular where a person was convicted of death and given death for killing a police officer. And 10 years later, they found that he was not given the proper jury instruction and he got a new trial. And when I tried the new case in Illinois, he walked out and off the death row with me because the first case hadn't been done correctly. His defense had not been presented adequately. So you can expect the appeals process to take a number of years. There's no limitation on the years. There's no number. They got to die in 5, they got to die in 10. It's when the process has been exhausted. The appeals process has been exhausted. That's the law. And I support that law as 100%, that to take a person's life, you got to go to maximum. You got to go the whole yard, the whole 100 yards. So you can expect that people who get the death penalty, not just the mass shooters, but others, may have certain appellate rights that have to be exhausted. That's what's happening.
Well, throughout my legal career, for the record, I've been opposed to death penalty. One of the first projects I did in law school was represent a person who was given the death penalty, and it was State Ex-Rel Eisen Dungy. There was escape from a prison in South Georgia, and it was mass chaotic, and there was murders done by the escapee. And the guy that we represented didn't murder anybody, but he did escape from prison, and he was given the death penalty. It was subsequently overturned because he only went along because he was kind of part of the crew that broke out of prison, but he killed nobody. And so the point is that, so I've been against it, but lately though, I think that my arguments as relate to these type murders, I think that I'm gonna carve out a gigantic exception. In cases where you have mass murders, that person videotape what he's gonna do, televise his mass murder, wear a bulletproof vest. I think in that case, I'm in support of the immediate death penalty and assuring the appellate right. The reason being is that we have an elevation of white supremacy in our country. And we saw an attempted overthrow of the federal government. It's almost as if there is a green light to start killing Black folks across America or minorities. And I think that we need something to deter this outrageous conduct because it's just going to only get worse. We've had more mass shooting in America over the last 5 years than any time in American history. During the Trump administration, remember we had the mass shooting in Vegas where a guy shot over 500 people. So these mass shootings are getting out of control. You can't wake up any day almost and not hear about somebody being murdered somewhere, and then you have these mass shootings. So I now am in favor of an exception to my position on this death penalty. I think Donald Ruff should have been killed a long time ago. That killed the people, Mother Emanuel. I think this guy, and I think that the kid in Oxford, Ohio, the 15-year-old, I've never been in favor of having a teenager killed, but I think they should make an exception in his case too.
Nate, every reading I've done over the years, and I've done a number of death penalty cases and trials, the consensus is, even from the proponents of the death penalty, is that it is not a deterrent. No person who go out and commit a crime, robbery, mass murder, rape, whatever mayhem they create, they're not going to sit down beforehand and say, well, if I do this, I don't get the death penalty. If I don't do this, I do get the death penalty. If I do this, do this, do this. They don't reason or analyze that they may get the death penalty. So it is not a deterrent. It may give you a momentary satisfaction that, oh, we killed him, but it's not going to stop people from doing this, in my humble opinion. I disagree with that. It's not going to stop anybody from doing it because they don't analyze. We don't analyze what we're doing, the consequence of it, because we either think we're going to get away or we're going to reach martyrdom. We're going to be a martyr. But so I don't buy that argument that it's going to deter. If you want to kill someone because they did something, then say that. So everything I read, Nate, don't support that. So I think the death penalty itself says that human life is not valuable because we can make an exception and kill this one. So you're telling the public, you're telling young people that it's okay to kill in some instances. They forgot what that instance is, but if the state kills, we continue to kill. So hell, I'll kill. We got countries all over this world who have guns. They don't come close to the killing that we do. So we need to do something about our thinking, our philosophy, our culture. And it is not killing people that's going to solve this problem. We got enough killing.
Well, one of the problems that we have in America is the proliferation of guns. Americans are 3% of the world population, but we're over 50% of private gun ownership in the whole world. So we have more guns in our country, the small percentage of the world population, than the rest of the world combined.
Right.
And I think that's one of, although I'm a proponent of the Second Amendment, but I just see that we have irresponsible gun ownership. And then our state had to merit to pass a less restricted law on gun ownership. Now in our state, come July 1st, you don't need to have a permit to own a weapon anymore. And I think that's wrong. We're now have an increase in crime, and their solution is give more people guns. So we'll have more people with guns, more killing, and this madness is not going to stop. And it's such a sad thing. Each of those people in Buffalo that lost a loved one, they have some deep sorrow. I could see it in their face, the hurt, the pain, the suffering. And we see this on a regular basis. And I'm sick of seeing it. You can't wake up any week now and not see these mass shootings. But we as Americans, I feel very strongly got to come up with a solution to this. We got to cut back on these mass murders. And also the run-of-the-mill murders that we're seeing every day. We just got to do something about it.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Well, the second issue, though, Council, this thing is getting out of control with the Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas, who is the longest tenured Associate Justice Supreme Court wife, Jenna Thomas, has been sending email, texts with numerous elected officials, administration officials, advocating the overthrow of the United States government by trying to get them to reverse an election that Biden won. And in none of the cases yet that they reported that Clarence Thomas has recused himself. And I'm getting concerned about that. How does the institution of the Supreme Court survive when you have this stench that's manifests itself? Not just the leak of the abortion decision, but I'm saying this text of Clarence Thomas' wife, that's used to be a career ender.
It's sad. It's sad. I want to support Clarence Thomas so bad from the beginning of his nomination to selection to the Supreme Court, but I've just given up on him. He doesn't seem to want to do anything that is related to or identifies with equality and rights of minority people. he has gotten in this chair, and he is just strongly supportive of, seem like everything that's Black, or he's anti-Black. I once talked with a person who clerked in the Supreme Court for one of the other justices. And I believe that person was telling me the truth. And he said that during his tenure as a clerk, it was back maybe in the 90s, Clarence Thomas had a banner in his chambers that, I can't quote it, but the essence of it was, don't expect him to embrace the left and their ideas. And he's going to get even for what they did to him during his nomination. This man stated that boldly, that he was out for vengeance for what happened to him during his nomination. I said, you got to be kidding. He said, nah, that's what's on his wall in his office. You know, it's almost like his manifesto, his statement. He's going to get, and it seems as though he is, he's following through with that statement. There is, but the whole federal system is tainted by the lack of recognizing a conflict. It's at the lower court on the federal bench. You got hell to go trying to remove a federal judge for conflict off of a case. You know that. And it goes all the way up to the top. I mean, they go on a vacation for a couple of weeks to the most expensive resort in the country, $50,000, family, come back, and they set and hear a case involving that sponsor of their trip without a blank. So Thomas's, that's all of them. So Thomas's behavior and position in this case, it is kind of unusual, but it's not surprising to me. They have a power and they're flaunting it, and we stand by and just object to it verbally, but we don't do anything about trying to change that rule. So there it is. He's like you're 44 or 41, whatever he is, like Trump. He didn't pay heed to anything we thought was what you're supposed to do. He just went and did what he wanted to do because he has the power now. And that's what Thomas is doing.
Well, one of the things that concerned me is the input of misinformation. And Janet Thomas was spreading gross misinformation,
right,
and seeking something that would overthrow the American government.
Right.
And she is the wife of the senior Supreme Court Associate Justice. It's just a terrible thing. It just amazes to me how much our country, I was talking to a repair guy this week, and it was amazing to me his thought process as to how he get information. Like I told him, I say, you know, Biden's poll number is down to 39%, but in reality, he actually accomplished more than anybody in modern history that held the presidency office. He took the unemployment down by 70%. We now have more jobs than people in America. He cut the Trump deficit. The Trump high unemployment, he cut by 70%. He cut the Trump deficit by $1.5 trillion. We passed legislation to improve the nation's highways, and eventually we're going to have an ecosystem that's more friendly because we're going to electrical cars that he's been pushing. But yet, because of misinformation, people say he's doing a horrible job. Mm-hmm. So then you see that this is not relegated to people in the White House or the political pundit. We now have a sitting Supreme Court justice wife that's promulgating these lies and got all this inherent perceived power, because they now, what's running the country is not the president, it's the 6-3 majority or 5-4 majority that these folks who are out of control in the Supreme Court now have. And when you told me the story, it's just unbelievable that he would have that in his chambers. The only time I came close to something like that, I had a case in a federal court and the federal judge had a Confederate flag in his chambers, which was insulting to me. And I got a case, and you can't get a change of judge in the federal court. In Indiana, you can. We get automatic. In Indiana, we had laws to deal with this back in the turn of the century because we have the KKK. In Indiana, we used to get automatic change of venue to avoid the adverse effect of the Klan, and you still get an automatic change of judge. But we don't have that in the federal system. So when I had the federal judge that had a Confederate flag, the only way that I could salvage the best thing for my client, I had to get a local lawyer who I thought was borderline white supremacist as a co-counsel. And then we got a favorable result. So I had to split fees with somebody that I wouldn't even speak to, a guy that I would never have a relationship with. But then I said, okay, I got to do what's in the best interest of my client. And that's what we do. But one of the things that could fix that problem is that there's been some legislation that the Democrats been trying to do to shorten the life tenure of these judges. But in a case like his, that's a very good argument. They should be limited to 20 years. 20 years is enough. After 10 years, they get their full salary. And so the only reason he's around now, it seems like now that I find out that he's trying to exact venue, but that's the United States of America that he's exacting venue. I mean, it's bigger than him.
Yes, I agree. I don't think we can justify a lot of things that has been practiced here in our country, even though we have a good system in principle, but in practice, it needs some tuning up. Definitely needs some tuning up.
And we having a response on our YouTube, and they echoed the issue about the Indiana gun issue, and they really like your sentiment about Clarence Thomas. Apparently, well, thank you, caller. We agree with your assertion that what you said. So continue to listen in. Also, our call-in number today is 888-788-0099. That's 888-788-0099. And the meeting code number is 862-4489-7309. We're trying this today to see can we get better reception. Now, there are so many legal issues that in our plate today. We have the stock market is going from a bull to a bear. And I want to talk briefly about that issue and tell you what my position is. The politicians are making the midterm election about the inflation issue. But here's my take on this whole problem. Inflation in our country, based on evidence I've seen, is tied into the fuel costs and the cost of fuel right now. When we increased gas prices in California to $6 and down to $5, we increased the cost of everything. And also we have a supply chain issue. So gas prices cost everything that we do to increase in cost. The shipping costs, delivery costs, everything imaginable. And I thought that if I was advising the administration today, that we got to focus on getting this gas prices down to $2. And I think that, and I thought it was a bad idea to increase interest, because when you increase interest, that affect poor folks who are trying to get a house for the first time. Interest rate that go from 2.5% to 5% on a $200,000 mortgage usually increase their person cost by about $225 a month. And that's tough for a person living from paycheck to paycheck. So the politicians that listen to our show, we need to focus on getting the gas prices down. And also we need to look at this interest rate. I just don't think that the Federal Reserve should dramatically increase interest. It went up too fast, Milton. I talked to a real estate person yesterday. The interest rate for new home loan now is up to 5%, from 2.5 to 5% in 6 months. That's too dramatic. What these Reserve are going to do, they're going to cause the country to go into a recession. So stay tuned for that. I just made a comment about that. But the next legal issue has to do with this abortion. I wish Vanita was on today because she's a crack research analyst. But now Oklahoma passes a bill to ban all abortion once the egg is fertilized.
Right, I read that.
That's got to be the dumbest bill I've ever heard, other than the Dred Scott decision when you make legalized slave, to say that a human being life begin at conception. Counselor, it poses a plethora of legal issues that these idiots not even thought about. Like, for example,
Go ahead, I'm sorry, Nate.
you're driving the HOV lane, you're pregnant, since you have a baby that's a human being, you got two people now. I mean, just the practical effect of this is endless. Life insurance. I mean, but go ahead, sir.
I empathize with your frustration. I have friends that are in Oklahoma, lawyers that I've known for years, and they don't express these views, but I guess they're not in the majority, but there are some intelligent people in Oklahoma. It just so happened that the unintelligent ones seem to be in control, especially in their politics, sorry to say. But I spoke to a junior college group Thursday, and they wanted to know, tell us what to do. What should we do? I can't tell people what to do other than to follow their truth, follow their heart on what they think is right. And that's what we got to keep doing, maybe a little more forcefully, but also with a little more compassion and understanding of why do people appear to be so anti us, minorities, immigrants? What is it, white people, that you want? That's the way to approach it. What is it you want? What are you afraid of? Losing the power that is your security? What do we have to do to show people that this diversity we're fighting for and these rights that we are fighting for is for the benefit of everyone? It's not for any harm to anyone. If we let these types of laws go into effect, like with abortion, we're going to be reversing. We're going to be going back. We're going to have, I don't know. I saw an article in the paper this week by Kamala Harris, and it described some of the things we talked about last week, some of the other rights that we have fought for over these years being attacked and being reversed. There's some voting rights. Nate, this can that this man opened when he became president and showing people they don't have to follow the law. They can make their own law and they can change things. It's been effective. It's being effective, and we got to be effective in resisting it. That's about all I can say.
Okay, our producer, we have a caller. Caller, you have a question or comment for us today?
I'm on now?
Yes, yes, you're on. Please state your name and where you're calling from.
This is Fred, Nate, and I'm calling from your home state of Florida.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Fred, calling from your home state of Florida. I just want to agree with you guys on the Indiana law regarding guns, because as soon as that goes into effect July 1, anytime a man puts his hands up and he puts them down to reach for his license, police are going to shoot, because you don't no longer have to have a gun permit to show the police officer. Stated clearly, Clarence Thomas is a result of George Herbert Bush, not George W. Putting him in office, the man has never done anything. He's basically, I read a book back in college called The Spook Who Sat by the Door. That's literally what he's done. He's sat by the door. The Supreme Court has not really done anything to help our people move forward. And now that he's sitting in the category of being senior most member of the court, he'll come at us. And it's obvious the way he set up with his relationship, who's running that thing. So I won't get into that. But I got to tell you guys, it's frustrating thinking about what's going on, voter rights and everything else we've done. when I voted in the primary a couple of weeks ago, as I walked into the room where we were doing the voting and they were doing all the checking and so forth, I was the only black person there. I don't know where we were. Maybe we voted early. You got to get out and do some things, guys, because things are turning around. And you're absolutely right, turning around, that Donald T. has opened up the gates of hell, let me tell it.
Right.
Let these people get out here and just decide that we are in charge, and anybody that doesn't look like us, and you know who I'm referring to, leave the country, be eliminated. And that's just who we are.
Well, thank you very much, Fred. It's a sad commentary in American history when we have this type of things occurring. But this abortion debate, Attorney Grimes, reminds me of Dred Scott versus Sanford. Now, folks, the reason I keep bringing this case out is that if we're not careful, we can go back to this type of litigation again. Now, Dred Scott versus Sanford was a landmark decision of the United Supreme Court in 1857. In that case, it was held that the United States Constitution was not meant to include American citizenship for people of African descent, regardless of whether they were enslaved or free. And so the rights and privileges of the United States Constitution did not apply to Black folks. So in one fell swoop, this draft opinion eliminates the rights of women to the Constitution. And I'm afraid that if they go after women, who will be the next target? I'm really afraid for this type of legislation because this right of privacy was among a penumbra of rights that gave the evolution of interracial marriages. And we have all sorts of decisions that were created based upon the Supreme Court that became more neutral in the 1950s when they did Brown versus Board of Education, when they outlawed separate but equal was unequal. But it took another 15 years for that to be promulgated in the school. In fact, in Indianapolis, for example, the race discrimination case didn't end Milton until 2003. So although the busing issues back in the 70s, the case actually concluded in 2003. I represent the lawyer, John Moss, on the fee petition at the end of the case. So the point I'm making is that most folks don't know how fragile democracy is. And I'm concerned about the fact when I see these idiotic decisions, particularly when I see this abortion debate, when they say the rights of women is being evaporated, that they don't have the ability to make decisions about their own bodies. And that's a radical departure of what democracy is all about. And I'm concerned about it.
Yeah, as well you should be. I think I've quoted to you before this book I recently read, Robert E. Lee and Me, written by a guy named Ty Seidule, Seidule, where he talks about the entitlement of white folks and the heroic status we have put people from the Confederate War, from the war between the states at, and how they control the narrative. They meaning Southern politicians, Southern people. They still control the narrative. And they have sold a lot of the country on the South won the Civil War. That's how controlling the narrative is done. And it's a serious indoctrination of our country. And you've had presidents to follow their lead and given the South a nodding of the head. So we have some serious work to do, Nathaniel Lee. And I'm not I feel bad that I'm not in knowing how to do it. I know how to go into court and fight for my client's right and show that they were harmed or show that the law applies to them in a criminal case, but I honestly don't know how to attack this monster called racism. Everything I've done for 70 plus years has failed because that belief is so thorough, it's so believed. He talks in that book about how every time the civil rights movement takes a step forward, the Southern movement is sure to counterbalance that with another statue or another event to counteract Martin Luther King birthday being allowed or this, that being allowed. That's why I always tease you about that statue in that circle there in Indianapolis. Is it still there or not? You know, with the slave on his knees looking up to the man on the horse, and he got chains around, and they're still using those symbols, and they are still putting us down as a people.
Well, for the record, Indiana was part of the northern states that was with the Union fighting the South. But here's where we are. I think that Fred made a really good point in terms of how we get out of this mess we're in. In the 2000 presidential election, Black women voted like never voted before. And I like to thank them each day for them coming out. Black men did not. We did not get the same turnout that we should. Black women was at 90%, Black men, they said it was like 25%. So we have to make sure that we focus this next midterm election on the Black male more than anything else. Because the only way we can get out of this mess on racism, we're trying to get laws passed that are make things a level playing field. So these laws about voting rights and things like that, they're not trying to give anyone an advantage. They're just trying to make it easier for every American to vote, and it applies to both folks. And so the Republican, in their mind, they determined that since they can't grow their voter base, the way they win election is reduce their opposition ability to vote. And they think that making it more restrictive now, you have to have ID cards and things like that. And the voting process takes longer. But, you know, I go vote in person at our clerk office. It usually takes me 5 minutes. I walk over, I vote in each election. And I've not went to my local polling site, I don't think, in the last 5 elections, or maybe more. Because it's just simple for me, because I work downtown Indy, and to walk to the clerk's office, vote, and then I can leave. And so I encourage everyone, like what Fred said, in this next election, we always say this, the next election is the most important one you ever face. Well, guess what? This next election, this midterm election, is going to be the most important midterm election in the history of American politics. The reason being, we have so many things that are up in the air that are so important. We have the selection of judges. We have to get more judges in office to counterbalance the effects of what Trump has done. We have to get some people in office to turn the tide on voter participation. These voter right laws are just bad for us. And we have to get people in terms of budgetary issues. You know, how do the government spend their money? The government this week, the House and the Senate, approved a $40 billion expense for Ukraine. And I'm saddened by the murderous dictator Putin that Trump praised all the time. But $40 billion to Ukraine on top of the billions that we're already given to them, I was concerned about that, because we're saying that we need to look at the federal budgetary deficit, but $40 billion, Milton. I thought that was a hell of a price tag. When Trump was in office, remember he got impeached because he withheld $400 million? Now we're talking $40 billion. You know, I was concerned about that because what could we do with $40 billion in our communities across the country?
We could clean the house. We could get some new windows and new fixtures, and we could even build a new house with that much money, metaphorically speaking. If we applied it to the present situation, everybody could get free education here in this country. I mean, there are a lot of things that could be done with that kind of money.
You know, your picture temporarily froze. But the reparation issue got some legs and then it got shot down. But we still have issues in our community whereby we have a great disparity in terms of resources. So I like to see more money spent in our community.
Right.
I like care like charity should begin at home. And yeah, I want to help the Ukraine, but at the same time, I'm not a fan of Rand Paul,
Mhm.
who voted against this, who held out. But I think that on this issue, he made some salient points. We have to support the war effort, but we also have to be equally more aware of what's going on here at home.
Mhm.
And when we increase interest rates for the average American who living from paycheck to paycheck, it takes the ability to acquire a home beyond their financial reach. So if we're trying to do this correctly, they should have passed legislation that if you have a certain income level, then we need to have an interest rate that's lower for that person so they could buy a home or buy cars, whatever. So we have to look out for the little guy and not just the billion-dollar corporations that been benefited from the Trump tax bill that gave them, and that ran up the record deficit. What most people don't realize is that under Trump leadership, America had been a country, for several centuries, and Trump ran up 25% of the federal deficit in less than 4 years. In less than 4 years, one guy has a 25% of the national deficit, one person under his presidency. And I just don't think people even think about stuff like that. So we have this massive financial hole created by a person that 30% of America thought did a great job, not realizing that what he did was bankrupt the country. And so the reason I bring that out is that I'm concerned about the federal budget deficit, but I'm more concerned also about the folks I see every day struggling to make ends meet.
So that's $40 trillion. I'm thinking about that figure.
It's 40 billion.
Yeah. Okay.
40 billion. And now, see, the reason I was startled by that number, I was saying, where the hell do they get $40 billion from? I mean, what are you going to do with 40 billion? I mean, Russia's economy is 1.7 trillion, Russia's total economy, right? So we're giving them what amount to what? That's, let's see, 40%. We're giving them about 20% of Russia's total economy to fight Russia. And so are we getting in a situation where we're getting into a war with Russia by getting more involved? There was a report that keep getting leaked out that the United States helped them target generals. Are we getting involved in this war?
We're involved in this war. What do you mean? Are we getting involved in it?
Well, what I'm saying is that it's one thing to give them money, but the other thing is that there was a report that the United States helped them target the generals. Now, I don't know why the United States will leak out information like that. I think that's a fundamental mistake. We all have to agree that you shouldn't not broadcast stuff like that. But I was concerned about it, that we're inching closer and closer to get involved in this terrible war between those two countries.
Haven't we in the past looked at who profits from war? And in this case, it seemed as though the weapon industry is making a tremendous profit in this war. And so the further we get into it, the more money that's going to be made on this war. So it just follows our old line of practice. Who's making the money? And we have certain industries in this country that makes a ton of money whenever we're engaged in a war.
Hey, one final thought before we close. What's going on in LA today, Counselor? What's the issues in your city today?
Well, like I said, the front page of today's paper this morning was this officer being suspended because he told his boys, happy hunting. We always got something replacing something else that we thought was front page material, but that one hit me today, that we're still not there. We still are not there with the mental state of law enforcement being in a place where everybody is looked at as having rights and certain inalienable rights that everybody's entitled to. And we still haven't solved that problem, Nathaniel Lee. And what are we going to do about it? How many more deaths do we have to have from overt racist acts of 18-year-olds or apparent racist act of law enforcement? We got a battle ahead of us. And voting and protesting is all I can suggest at this moment.
Well, I'm glad that Larry Elder didn't get the governorship there in California, thank God. And here locally, I'd like to thank all the folks that came out and voted in the primary. Thank you. My good friend, LaDonna Freeman, congratulations. Pike Township here. Johnson, Trustee Johnson, great job. And all the folks who participate in the process, I'd like to thank each and every one of you. And all the precinct people that listen to our show. We're gonna need for you to really participate in the next election more than ever before. So I'd like to thank all the people that listen to our show and continue to support our show. Next Saturday, we're gonna be off and because of the Memorial Day weekend, we'll be back in 2 weeks. So until then, thank you and may God bless you. And don't forget now, the virus is escalating again. I forgot to talk about that very briefly. The coronavirus, those offshoot, I can't think of the Omicron 2, 3, or whatever they are. When I went to the drugstore this week to get my booster shot, I learned that at CVS Pharmacy, they run out of medication because they have more people that have contracted a secondary form of this virus than ever before. So more people took virus medication in the last couple of weeks than ever before. So this virus is not over, folks. It's still real. So take care of yourself. God bless you. Take care, everyone.
Bye, Nate.